Good morning. For those of you who are in the church this morning, we are having a bit of trouble with our microphone system. So all of us up here are going to do our best to project as loudly as we possibly can. Let me start by taking off my mask. Surely that will help. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Charleston. We are delighted that you are here to worship with us, whether virtually or in person. Our in-person attendance continues to be limited due to our COVID protocol, and you do need to sign up online in advance. About us, we are a community of diverse theological ideas, exploring together how to live a spiritual and religious life of faith without dogma or a particular creed. We strive to be an inclusive community of inspiration, love, and service, committed to creating a better world. We want to be in right relationship with each other and others around the planet. Our online calendar contains virtual programs such as Bible study, meditation, and the Women's Book Club, as well as in-person activities like family movie night, religious naturalism outings, and the Backpack Buddies Packers at the Low Country Food Bank. There is an astounding number of activities you can be part of here, and I invite you to look at our virtual gateway for a complete listing. If you are a visitor and you would like to learn more about our church and the process for membership, or you'd like to receive our virtual weekly gateway and are attending virtually, just make a note of that in the chat box. If you are here in person, there's a blue card in the back of each pew, and you can indicate that as well and then drop it in the back of the church at the collection basket on our way out. This morning I have two special announcements, one from CAJM and one from the Alliance. Tomorrow, Monday, October 25th at 7 p.m., CAJM participants will gather for the Community Problems Assembly. It's both in person and masked at the Hanahan Amphitheater or virtually via Zoom. You'll get to hear firsthand some of the stories around the CAJM network. After hearing the issue updates and the personal testimonies, each of you gets to vote on which problem CAJM will be working to address this year: the environment, gun violence, or housing. The issue topics are broad, but the specifics will be narrowed down in the research process. The Alliance is holding a Christmas wreath and candle ring fundraiser. This fundraiser, hosted by the Alliance, benefits the church. Because of COVID, the Alliance has not been able to run their famous rummage sales. Orders need to be in by November 5th, and the wreaths will be delivered to Gage Hall for pickup in early December. They encourage you to buy for yourself, buy as gifts, tell your family, friends, and neighbors all about this wonderful project. Take a look at the service, after the service, at the refreshments table to see a sample and place your order. You'll also be able to order online via Breeze. The deluxe candle ring is 12 inches, with a candle not included, for $30. The deluxe 22-inch for wreath is $40. After the service today, for virtual attendees, there will be breakout rooms for informal chats. If you'd like to do that, grab a cup of coffee and select the option to join a room after the service. If you are here in person, there are some refreshments in the churchyard at the side of the church. Finally, please put your noise-making devices into worship mode. Thank you, and welcome to church.
Good morning. I'm Priscilla Shumway. I'm your worship associate for this morning, and I'm pleased to tell you a little bit about our speaker this morning. Reverend Rosemary Maree is a staff chaplain for Roper St. Francis Healthcare. She obtained her MA in Religious Studies and is an American Academy of Clinical Pastoral Education trained in chaplaincy. In her job, she offers holistic care to diverse patients of all backgrounds struggling with spiritual and/or emotional distress in the hospital setting. She is newly ordained under Evangel Fellowship International, and she was drawn to chaplaincy to be able to enter the sacredness of human suffering and to nurture the connections of the hurting between self and God. Since March of 2020, Rosemary has been on the front line of COVID-19 pandemic, maintaining a ministerial presence among COVID patients, their families, and healthcare workers. We're very pleased to have Rosemary with us this morning. Our opening words this morning are "What I Know" by Kenneth Collier. I do not know where we go when we die, and I do not know what the soul is, or what death is, or when, or why. What I do know is that the song once sung cannot be unsung, and the life once lived cannot be unlived, and the love once loved cannot be unloved.
Let us light our chalice. Frank and Regina Rapoli will be lighting it for us. And our chalice lighting words today are titled, "Let There Be Light" by Gordon B. McKeeman. Let there be light. Let it shine in dark places, in moments of pain, in times of grief, in the darkness of hatred, violence, oppression, where there is discouragement and despair. Wherever darkness is to be put to flight, let there be light. And now I have a little story for you. It happened in ancient times that a slave named Androcles escaped from his master and fled into the forest. And he wandered there for a long time until he was weary. Just then he heard a lion near him, moaning and groaning, and at times roaring terribly. And when he tried to get up, there he saw the lion coming towards him. Instead of attacking him, the lion kept moaning and groaning and looking at Androcles, who saw that the lion was holding out his right paw which was covered in blood and very swollen. Looking more closely at it, Androcles saw that a big thorn pressed into the paw, which was the cause of all the lion's pain. Oh, Androcles had to get the courage, and he seized hold of the thorn and drew it out of the lion's paw, who roared with pain when the thorn came out, but soon after found such relief that he rubbed up against Androcles and showed him that he knew that he was thankful for being relieved from the pain. Now one day, some soldiers marched through the forest and found Androcles, and they took him prisoner and brought him back to the town, where he was condemned to death from running from his master. Now, in those days, when you were condemned to death, the protocol was to throw you to the lions. The Emperor of Rome was in the royal box that day and gave the signal for the lion to come out and attack Androcles. But when it came out of its cage and got near Androcles, what do you think happened? Instead of jumping upon him, it rubbed up against him and stroked him with his paw. It was, of course, the lion which Androcles had met in the forest. The emperor summoned Androcles to him, so Androcles told the emperor what had happened in the forest and how he had helped the lion, and now the lion was showing gratitude for his having relieved it of the thorn. Thereupon the emperor pardoned Androcles and ordered the master to set him free, and the lion was taken back to the forest and also let loose to enjoy freedom once more. The end.
Our reading this morning is a poem that was sent to me by Reverend Rosemary. It's called The Map You Make Yourself. You have looked at so many doors with longing, wondering if your life lay on the other side. But for today, choose the door that opens to the inside. Travel the most ancient way of all, the path that leads you to the center of your life. No map, but the one you make yourself. No provisions, but what you already carry, and the grace that comes to those who walk the pilgrim's way. Speak this blessing as you set out, and watch how your rhythm slows, the cadence of the road drawing you into the pace that is your own. Eat when hungry, rest when tired. Listen to your dreaming. Welcome detours as those doors open deeper in. Pray for protection, ask for guidance, offer gladness for the gifts that come, and then let them go. Do not expect to return by the same road. Home is always by another way, and you will know it not by the light that waits for you, but by the star that blazes inside you, telling you that where you are is holy, and you are welcome here.
Good morning. I was a high school teacher for many years, so I think I'm really good at projecting my voice, so hopefully you can all hear me. It's an honor to be here with you. I am a wife to an amazing husband of about 5 years. I am a mom to 3 daughters who I love intensely. And I am a grandma to 2 precious grandchildren. I'm enjoying being a grandparent much more than I ever did being a parent. I am also a healthcare chaplain at Roper Hospital, right downtown here. I mainly cover the oncology and COVID units. I feel blessed beyond all measure to be able to do what I do every day. Most of you probably have an idea of what a chaplain in a hospital does. I visit sick patients. I also provide calm in the storm soothe the angry, pray with patients if they so desire, help the dying transition from this life to the next, comfort grieving family members, encourage nurses, doctors, and staff members. I laugh, cry, joke, swear. I feel beat up some days, energized on others. I love the people I get to interact with every day, people from all walks of life, cultures, belief systems. It is truly a privilege to do what I do. Bear with me now as I bring you into my world as it has been these last several months. It is heavy and dark, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, I promise. Life changed for me, as I know it did for you, about 19 months ago. Something called COVID-19 invaded our lives and showed little mercy. Working in healthcare became dark. The hallways of our hospital, once filled with visitors and volunteers, were now eerily quiet and empty. As COVID enveloped the world in fear, COVID patients were forced into isolation, removed from family and community in a grand effort to thwart the spread of this virus. I am no stranger to suffering and death. As a hospital chaplain, these are normal occurrences for me. I have come to view death as a sacred right, one in which I am humbled and honored to participate in with patients. I believe death is every much a natural and necessary part of life as birth is. When COVID made its presence known, our units in the hospital began to fill with COVID patients who were very ill. At that point, I honestly was not all that intimidated. As I watched daily news reports of staggering numbers of deaths in other parts of the country and the world, Charleston felt kind of okay, relatively speaking, since we're in a pandemic. There were heartbreaking losses for sure at the beginning of COVID. No one was really sure how to treat all these COVID patients, considering there was little experience on or research with this new virus. What was so horrific were that patients were dying from COVID alone, without a loved one at their side. While Roper holds to the belief that no patient die alone, always a nurse or other healthcare practitioner or chaplain will be present, it is not the same. Not one, not even a spouse or a parent, was permitted to come into the hospital to visit a COVID patient, even if that patient was at the end of life. Indelibly etched into my memory is the voice of a woman I'll call Mrs. C, who I was only able to interact with over the phone in what we now call telechaplaincy. A week previous, Mrs. C dropped off her husband at the emergency room entrance since she was not permitted to accompany him inside. She watched as he walked through the doors alone, never imagining that she would not see him alive again. Within a short time, Mr. C lost his ability to breathe due to his COVID-ravaged lungs. The day I spoke with Mrs. C, the doctors informed her that her husband would probably not survive. All his organs were severely damaged by COVID, and his body was quickly shutting down. They wanted to remove the ventilator, which was causing more harm than good at this point, and would result in his death. Mrs. C's cries of shock and agony coursed violently through the cell phone connection. Her inconsolable wails filled my ears with questions of, how could this be? Why would God allow this to happen? All I could do was cry with her and be a source of strength and peace to her unyielding pain. Her husband died the next morning, her grief further complicated by the inability to bury her husband. Funeral homes were afraid of COVID too. It would be months before Mrs. C could experience any closure with her family over the too soon death of her husband at a small graveside service. The internal voice in my soul spoke, "Be still and know." There are countless stories like this that I could share, but nothing really prepared me for the Delta variant of COVID that assaulted Charleston this summer and from which we are still reeling. Within days of its arrival, every bed in our ICUs were filled with COVID patients. Every room that could be converted to a negative air pressure room that already had not been during the first wave of COVID was converted. Shocked, I stepped into, or actually more like jumped, into a world of tragedy and grief that I have never experienced before. I witnessed nurses and environmental service workers, who are really the unsung heroes of this pandemic, scramble to clean and disinfect a room thoroughly after a COVID patient was either transferred or had died, in order to make space for another COVID patient lying on a stretcher in the emergency room. I visit COVID patients within the first or second day of their arrival. Dozens upon dozens of faces flash through my mind as I recall visiting with them before they were intubated on a ventilator. It's been the same scenario with almost every patient. He or she would be feeling sick and pretty scared, but also hopeful. I would offer words of encouragement and continue to cheer them on through the progression of the virus, from losing their ability to breathe well, unable to hold a conversation or to eat or drink, to intubation as the patient is sedated, to the almost inevitable outcome of death. Seeing the fear in these patient eyes as the virus took possession of their bodies was heartbreaking. You have to keep fighting. Don't give up. You can do this. God is with you, became my daily call of duty. After months of this, the words echoed hollow to me. I would speak frequently with family members on the phone who were often angry that they could not visit their loved ones, understandably so. We made good use of FaceTime with the patients, but it's not the same. Many families would cling to the miracle language, believing beyond what is reality, that their loved one would be coming home soon, cured. I'm believing for a miracle too, I would say, my heart sinking. Thank goodness the medical community now knows more about COVID. We permit 2 family members at a time now to visit patients who are at the end of life. Sadly, by this point, the patient is sedated and unable to communicate with their family. I have held on to the wife as she said her final goodbye to her husband, just in his 40s. I've put my arm around the shoulders of a young woman who just watched her fiance in his 20s take his final breath. I have sat with family members as they screamed and wept and fell to the floor upon the passing of their husband and father. I have stood with the son who said goodbye to his mother on Tuesday and to his father 2 rooms down on Thursday. I watched helplessly as exhausted doctors, respiratory therapists, and nurses fought untiringly against all odds to keep the patient alive. I offered tissues and empathy to young nurses as they lost yet another patient to COVID. There was no space to process all that was happening every day. I went from one bed to another trying to offer some light in the depth of this darkness. It seems so senseless. I stopped going on social media. It is too hurtful to read posts by people who refuse to get vaccinated or believe that COVID is a conspiracy. I would arrive home nightly, numb, exhausted, barely able to do anything but to fall into bed so I could get up the next morning and do it all over again. One day I just had these words overflowing within me, demanding to be spelled out on paper. So I wrote in my journal, something I hadn't done for quite a while, and I'd like to share part of that entry with you. I have memorized the details of the long second-floor hallway which leads me to the COVID ICU. Countless numbers of times in the last year or so, I have walked this hallway, never knowing exactly what I will find at my destination. A beloved patient taking a turn for the worse, weary nurses fighting for their patient's survival with everything that is in them, frustrated doctors agonizing over how to change the trajectory of this horrible, awful COVID virus. I'm just a chaplain watching helplessly as one of our patients on a ventilator doesn't make it. Black, white, young, old, male, female, rich or poor, COVID does not discriminate. I once again make the long walk down the COVID unit to the emergency room to escort family to their loved one's deathbed. The last time they saw their loved one, he or she was alive and talking. How could death have arrived so soon? The tangible grief permeates the air as family members weep their final goodbyes, wrapped in blue plastic gowns and covered with a space-like helmet to protect from COVID, but which also succeeds in preventing skin-to-skin contact. These are surreal moments where people, much like me, are ravaged with heartache. They cannot feel the warmth of their loved one's hand or press their lips against their forehead. It seems more like a sci-fi movie than real life. How cruel this pandemic has been for so many. Yet, unfortunately, so many outside the hospital doors just don't get it. I provide the tissues and compassionate hugs and utter all too familiar words of, I am so sorry for your loss. After family members can take no more, they unwrap from the plastic and space helmets. Shock registers on their faces as they numbly allow me to guide them out of the COVID unit and down the longest hallway that ever was. Words are usually few. What does one say in a situation like this? Anything I can think of to say echoes hollowly, reverberating the uselessness of yet another too soon death. Standing at the bedside of a dying patient too many times this week, these words strike me. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? How do I find meaning in all of this? I believe God will swallow up death and wipe away tears from our eyes. There is hope. There has to be hope. That marks the end of my entry. So much darkness and sorrow. But it is hope to which I ferociously cling. Throughout this pandemic, we've been inundated with how many cases of COVID have been reported and how many deaths have occurred. Each and every one of those numbers have represented a precious child of God who is somebody's spouse, child, parent, friend. As hard as my job has been, preserving the humanity of each patient and embracing the sanctity of death for every single person that I am privileged to journey with is my sacred commission. As I minister to family members, I lend my strength to the grieving, helping them to be mindfully present to their loved ones as they pass on. I pour life-giving words into the healthcare team, encouraging them to recognize the powerful impact they are continuing to have on their patients. Their love and devotion are part of the holiness of each patient crisis. Somehow they continue on. They do not give up, and they continue to appreciate the beautiful in life and to savor the light wherever it appears. Our world is a dichotomy of good and evil, light and darkness, courage and fear. COVID has caused many to become fearful. Especially since the Delta variant arrived, I've been afraid to be in crowds of people, to walk into a grocery store unmasked, or to even just walk in. But I firmly believe that God did not create us to be fearful. I am trying to embrace the goodness I see every day. I am awed by the patient who does recover and gets to leave the hospital transformed in ways he or she could have never envisioned. I love my job. Yes, it has been a challenge some days not to sink into despair, and my faith has been tested. But there is this miracle that I get to take part in every single day called life. Through the darkness of this pandemic, and even through other dark times in my own life, there is a light shining, breaking forth to a profound sense of gratitude. How thankful I am for the love of my husband, my precious relationships, the rhythmic beauty of the ocean, the joyous giggles of my 2.5-year-old grandson, and so much more. I believe in the goodness of God. My advice to myself and to you, should you take it: eat the ice cream, buy the shoes, be intentional in showing love to the ones you love, and yes, even to a stranger. Take a chance. Get out of your comfort zone, even if it's just baby steps. Keep a daylight savings account where you hoard all your moments of light. Find joy and laughter in every day, for therein lies the miracle of life.
We now read from our book of life, our congregational diary of our joys and sorrows. Sadly, we share the news that longtime church member Laura Morris died October 20th. Our condolences to her husband Bill and all of her family. A memorial service will be planned for later. As always, you will see information in both our gateway and on our website for directories for addresses if you would like to send notes or cards. And we mourn today with Tobias Van Buren and his family after the tragic death of his 53-year-old son, Mark, this past week in a car accident in Vermont. Mark grew up in our church, and for a time, he worked with his dad in the clam harvesting business in Charleston. Jack and I often were pleased to meet Mark as he delivered clams to our house on the Isle of Palms. A memorial service will take place in our churchyard on Saturday, October 30th at 10:30 a.m. Also, please keep Casey Price and her family in your hearts as they mourn the sudden loss of Casey's sister. Casey, you are in our thoughts. And we learned that Ilsa Calcaño has her sister staying with her while she recovers from back surgery. Ilsa, we wish you all the best. And we have happy news to announce from Jenna and Justin Brady. They have just moved into a new home on Johns Island and are excitedly preparing a nursery for a baby boy due to arrive in March. Congratulations to you both. And early happy birthday to Ed Stevens, who will be celebrating his 80th birthday on November 1st. Ed, enjoy your special day. And for our meditation today, as we enter into a moment of silence and meditation, this comes from James Morrison. It's entitled, "Share Your Glorious Light with the World." Within each of our hearts is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. We take a moment of silence. It is now time for our offering. Throughout the month of October, we are sharing the plate with Charleston Habitat for Humanity. After Social Justice Sunday, we received a matching gift. Dollar for dollar, your donations to the Charleston Habitat will be matched up to $2,000. This is an opportunity to double your impact and do twice the good. Donations given to the Sunday offering, both in Breeze and here in the church, will be split 50-50 with our church and with Charleston Habitat. You have the option to give a direct donation to the Habitat for Humanity on our website in the Breeze section. If you are here in person, you may place your cash or your check in the basket at the rear of the church. Any checks that you place in the basket or that you mail to the church should be noted share the plate or habitat grant during the memo line, which would help us. Our offering will now be gratefully given and gratefully received.
Thank you to Amy Ball and Carol Oates for sharing your lovely musical talents with us this morning. And we will now extinguish our chalice, and the words are printed on your order of service. You are welcome to read them with me. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I've learned to persevere through dark times and cling to hope that I know is there, even if it might be hidden temporarily. My faith fuels my journey, a journey that ebbs and flows and constantly changes. I don't get it right all the time and sometimes even fall flat on my face, but the beauty of this journey is that I choose to get back up and keep searching for the light. From Jan Richardson, Circle of Grace. But this is what I can ask for you, that in the darkness there be a blessing, that in the shadows there be a welcome, that in the night you be encompassed by the love that knows your name.